What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as Ridemyavatar, and today we're going to have Imperialdramon Jogress deck we're going to talk about. So let's dive into more BT8 decks to cover. So the main focus of the Imperialdramon deck is it's a DNA Digivolve deck, or aka Jogress, for all those Japanese people that need to hear the Jogress key term. Well, you know, I'm English and I watch the show. So if you guys need to hear, Jogress, this isn't the video for you. So the deck is an aggro-based deck where it pushes so much aggro in a turn your opponent can't catch up. It's constantly applying pressure with its jamming skills and stuff like that. So you just have to play around this. So this deck achieves its DNA Digivolve from our level 4s into a very strong level 5 that allows us to attack again. And then on top of that, it can restand and create more opportunities to Jogress. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about this deck, what you kind of want to use and stuff, all that fun jazz. To achieve the win in this deck, you need to have good DNA targets like Imperialdramon and DemiVeemon. They are very great for what they're going to do. And then ways to multi-attack. So Imperialdramon Dragon modes, Fire mode are really important in this deck because it allows us to multi-attack or create opportunities to do so. The core of the deck, since it's a very archetype theme deck, it kind of locks into what we kind of have for flex spots. We very little have those, but roughly what I've seen, we have about roughly 4 to move around that can affect the deck's that doesn't affect the deck's main strength. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking of deck building with this. So first off, we do have Demi Demon, who is a very powerful draw card in our deck because we do have ways of gaining jamming with our Digimon. So it allows, or giving our Digimon inheritable jamming. So it allow us to draw a card constantly. So Demi Demon is the more opportune, better Digitama than any of the other ones we have to date. And 4 is kind of what you need. You're not going to exceed that. There's very little where the game should ever reach going past your 4th Digi-Egg. So just keep that in mind. Let's dive into the level 3s. We have BT3-002 with jamming. It's a massive threat on its own accord because it's going to constantly just keep clearing out security left and right. There's not many things they can do to shut it down because it's not dying in battle. Doesn't matter how big it is. It's a 2000 DP, so they have to target in and remove it first. So it's a threat that will apply enough damage on its own accord that it makes your opponent have to go like, I need to remove this. Another great card to talk about is our Veemon from EX Collection 1. So when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, gain 1 memory. This is a once per turn effect, but at least gaining that 1 extra memory can proceed to extend our plays, and that's kind of big. We really want to be able to extend our plays in this deck. Next, we have BT8-Veemon in here because it has the ability to reveal the top 4 cards and add a card with 2 colors in it, with blue from among them, and place it into your hand. Return the remaining cards to the bottom of the deck in any order. Being able to, plus that way is really good. We have enough targets to allow us to hit, or his effect should at least net us a positive in some way capacity. Starter deck 9 Veemon. It's here because similar to BT8's Veemon is that it reveals top 3, adds 1 card with free traits and among them to your hand, place the remaining cards at the bottom of the deck. We have enough free targets in their inheritables to actually validate its play because we're going to be a way of adding and plus 1ing. So let's move on to the level 4s. We have ExVeemon from EX Collection 1. This card has the ability of jamming in its own self, so it'll trigger DemiVeemons, but also it gives the inheritable, because we all are free types, will give jamming to the rest of our stuff, meaning our Digimon, whatever we do for that matchup, we should see very easily none of our Digimon dying in battles with security Digimon. So that's our really end goal here, and that's really a very powerful setup. Stingmon from BT starter deck 9, not BT. Sorry. This card is in here because he has a way of playing himself for a 3 cost. He reduces his play cost by 1. But also when attacking, if you have a blue Digimon in play, draw 1. So being able to draw 1 when he attacks after you Jogress is really good. And it's not once per turn. So you're going to have multiple Stingmon triggers, which could lead to a massively big hand that your opponent can't stop. And that means you can extend your plays, constantly moving up left and right with it. And it's just very powerful skills left and right. We have Raidramon in the deck because, yes, it's armor release, but it's a blue-green Digimon. So it validates itself so that if you're missing one or the other color in your hand, you can at least, make sure you have it. Multicolors really do help out. He Digivolves for 2 costs on top of Veemon, but he also has an ability to suspend one of your opponent's level 4 or lowers, means a blocker could get suspended if they are playing it. But he's just very good because he has armor release as well. So if they kill off the Raidramon, at least you'll have the Veemon still on board to climb back up. So just keep that in mind what you're planning to do. Move on to the level 5s. All our level 5 Digimon have DNA Digivolve for a blue level 4 and a green level 4. As long as we have those 2 colors, we can DNA Digivolve. So now let's talk about, first off, Imperialdramon. The major one you want to be on because he multi-attacks by himself, but also has a way of bouncing a 6,000 DP to the bottom of the opponent's deck. So being able to spin it and get it out of here is really good. That means a blocker can go bye-bye or a threat that's on board that you didn't like. So, but he's also in here because he unsuspends himself. So that means he guarantees 2 attacks with himself always. So just keep that in mind. DemiVeemon is the less desirable DNA Digivolve, but when Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. When DNA Digivolve, that Digimon doesn't unsuspend during your opponent's next unsuspend phase, but it also has an inheritable for 1,000 DP for each colors it has. So especially we'll have always 2. We will, except if you're on one of the other cards, you'll at least gain at least 2,000 DP. 2,000 DP doesn't really matter, but it can matter if you're swinging into opponent's Digimon first, then restanding for effects and proceeding that way. So, I mean, it has its uses, but it's really in there just for another DNA Digivolve target for your win con. So, let's move on to the level 6s. We have quite a few, actually. First off, we have BT3's Imperialdramon Dragon Mode. The reason for this is it has a self-standing effect with jamming, which could mean a few other cards, if depending on when this comes out, can lead up to a restand on its own. He reduces his own cost to be a 3 cost if we're Digivolving on a Dino B or a Imperialdramon. So I think that's kind of its own win con in itself, being able to be a 3 cost, and then itself stands itself anyway. So that means another multi-attack possibility, which can be really annoying and very much a pressure move that your opponent might not be able to handle. And with that, you could clear easily 5 security checks in 1 turn with the right setup. Imperialdramon Dragon Fighter Mode, so which is not Dragon Fighter Mode, it's just Imperialdramon Fighter Mode. So this Digimon can Digivolve on top of our, Imperialdramons for a 2 cost, our Dragon modes at least for a 2 cost, and then when Digivolving, it can bounce an opponent's Digimon to their hand, which is 10,000 DP, which is usually means an ultimate going back to their hand. And then when attacking and once per turn, if this Digimon has a blue Digievolution card, unsuspend one of your Digimon. And if this Digimon has a green, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. So it allows you to at least swing into your opponent's Digimon after you restand yourself. Great option, great power. He's a very powerful Digimon all in all. Then we have Imperialdramon Dragon Mode from the starter deck 9. This card really is another OTK win style because the way what happens is you'll be able to remove the ExVeemon and Stingmon from your sources or the Raidramon. Boom, place them both on the field, and instantly you can Jogress again and then swing again. And that could proceed to be winning in its own right, because now that means if it's a Imperialdramon Jogress, that's 2 more attacks on your opponent. So that's why it's in here, just being able to make another DNA Digivolve, possibility. So level 7's in the deck, very interesting choice. I did a 1-1 split on this because Omnimon, the goal with this one is he splits for game, so he can Digivolve on top of your Imperialdramon for that Blitz cost, so when Digivolving Blitz, and he self-restands for that extra swing, so after you cleared out, maybe you have Blitz Omni in hand, boom, instantly goes in. He has a self-protection that lets him not be rewound, bounced to hand, bottom the deck, or, deleted in general by effects. So, I mean, it's quite useful. He has his merits, and he's just a win con in himself. And then we have Imperialdramon Paladin mode. So when one of your Digimon digivolves into this card in your hand, you may return one white level 7 card from your trash to the bottom of your deck, reduce the Digievolution cost by 4. So it'll be a 3 cost on top, which is nice. He has a built-in self-protection when digivolving and when attacking, so this both can trigger twice. It's not once per turn. You may return one 2-color card from the Digievolution cards to the bottom of the owner's deck to trash all Digievolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. Then return all your opponent's Digimon with no Digievolution cards to the bottom of their owner's deck. So, if you can clear out a full board with Paladin mode, and now your opponent is kind of struggling to catch back up. I mean, he's just a win more card. He's nothing too crazy. So now let's move on to the options themselves. Ice Wall is in here because it's still incredibly broken, especially at the right time. A choke point can occur that now your opponent has to now pass turn, basically, because even if they swing, they're going to move it over twice. So that means it instantly goes back to your turn and can mean wins for you. Ice Wall's just still nasty all in all. Then we have Hammer Sparks, extender of plays. His insecurity can pass turn. Both Ice Wall and Hammer Spark can do that. If they're hidden security, you're most likely going to make your opponent pass turn. It's just viable that way. So it's just in there to extend plays. And then we have Hidden Potential Discover. Since we are kind of a green deck as well, Hidden Potential Discovered really extends massive amount of plays because now our Imperialdramons can basically come in for free and not cost us anything. So being able to suspend one of your green Digimon, the next time one of your green Digimon digivolves this turn, you may suspend one of your Digimon to reduce the memory cost by 5. This also works for our level 7s. So now Paladin mode can be coming in for a 2 cost, which isn't bad either. So, I mean, take it as you see fit, but I think Hidden Potential Discover really does help out. And now let's talk about our Tamer lineup. We only have 2 Tamers to really talk about. First off, Davis. He's going to set our memory to 3, guaranteeing us 3 memory a turn. But he's also, in this style of deck, we can most likely believe we're going to at least guarantee a +2 every time he comes into play. So, I mean, it is real top 3. There are chances that you might only get a +1, but the higher level of draw in this deck definitely helps out with this Davis. And then we have Davis and Ken. This most broken card ever existed. So starter main phase, if you have a blue Digimon in play, gain 1 memory. If you have a green Digimon in play, gain 1 memory. Because of how phases work, after the hatch phase, which is /raising, you can bring up your blue-green Hyildramon that you have there in raising, or DemiVeemon, or Raidramon. To all honesty, if you bring that up, you'll instantly gain 2 memory. And this does stack up, so the more we have, the more benefit we have, and that's just how that's going to go. And then when your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon that has 2 or more colors, you may suspend this Tamer to unsuspend that Digimon. So let's say our Hyildramon's all tapped out. We can go into the starter deck, Imperialdramon Dragon mode. Now rest the, Davis and Ken, instantly pull out the 2 sources. He restands himself, and boom. You're just going for another swing and a half, and now your opponent has to answer this. So it's just how this is going to go. Let's dive into that beautiful side deck we love so much. First off, let's talk about it. We have Megadeth. Megadeth is a really powerful option in its own right. I think it's quite useful because It suspends one of your opponent's Digimon and then return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to their owner's hand for a 5 cost. That doesn't have a level requirement or level restriction, so you're just gaining so much value off of it. And then, in a sense, Blizzard, this card really does help out. Trash the bottom of the bottom Digievolution cards of all your opponent's Digimon, and then up to 3 of your opponent's Digimon with no Digievolution cards can't attack or block until the end of your opponent's next turn. So what the goal is with this is that it's going to prevent, you know, attacks and stuff like that. It's quite cheap, especially with how it removes all Digievolution sources. Your opponent's now having to answer this card is huge. So that means now they don't have all that resources, all that fancy power-ups and stuff like that. Especially against Jogress and stuff like that. That's a full removal source, and now they can't swing with their stuff. So, I mean, all those inheritables gone. I think that's really powerful, and it should not be slept on. And then I find this card very interesting from BT03. Positon Laser. Up to 2 of your opponent's Digimon can't attack or block until the end of opponent's next turn. Then, if you have a blue Digimon in play, return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to its owner's hand. But also is security. Up to 2 of your opponents can't attack for the turn. And then, if you have a blue Digimon in play, return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to its owner's hand. Does the same exact thing, and since we are a hybrid deck, we meet that requirement quite easily. So it's just a good, another possible removal card, and it's just strong enough. I think this is a very solid tech choice. I think the sideboard can be improved depending on your meta, but I think for a basic sideboard, I think this is a good start. So guys, what did you think of the video? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!